unfortunate because it's often those situations that could lead to us landing a great new job, connecting with a mentor, or even dating someone that we're smitten with. And that's why in this video I want to cover how you can avoid that awkward trap and impress the people you admire by standing out in an incredibly positive way. To do that, we're going to be referencing one of the people who has done this many times, Sean Evans of Hot Ones. So let's start by looking at Sean's greatest skill, asking killer questions.
If you could steal one item out of Casey Neistat's studio, what would you grab?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. He's got a lot of stuff in there. He's got drones.
Can you give me a band that people make fun of on the internet that you think deserves a lot more respect from a songwriting perspective?
That's a great question.
Do you ever think about how much your narrative is shaped by the need to package the details of your life into these instantly accessible inputs?
A great question. No, Sean Evans is the best host on the internet.
Nailing your questions is especially important when interacting with people of higher status, because chances are they've been asked the same question over and over and over again. Take Saoirse Ronan, for instance, who must be tired of this kind of question by now.
What's the worst pronunciation of your name you've ever heard?
What's the worst butchering of it you've ever heard?
What's like the weirdest one you've ever heard?
And it's not just celebrities who get repetitive questions. If you've ever come home from college or a vacation to a slew of, well, how was it questions, you know the feeling. So if you want to impress someone, don't go for the low-hanging fruit. A much better strategy is to empathize with the person, to ask yourself what question they probably get all the time, and then to ask a question beyond the obvious one. Here Sean does it, avoiding obvious direct questions about the Star Wars plot, and instead asking John Boyega about the security measures that were present to prevent spoiler leaks.
Can you reveal some of the behind-the-scenes security measures that go into putting a cap on Star Wars?
I know. I remember I put an overcoat because every time we leave the set, we can't actually leave in costume.
Now, asking questions beyond the obvious, of course, becomes easier when you know a bit about the individual, and this is a reason why Sean's crazy prepared research tends to be so appreciated.
Can you tell the people about the instruments of destruction?
Oh my God. What? Sean, where'd you even find that info? Dang, deep cuts.
You're like a really well-researched and like great interview. This is wild.
So are you.
Thanks.
So are you.
So even though you're probably not conducting interviews, you can apply the same principle in your own life prior to attending a networking event or an interview, for instance. Read up on the person or the company. Get to the point where you don't need to ask how they got their start or what industries they work with or anything that you could find on their About page for that matter. That way you avoid questions that immediately disqualify you. But avoiding those questions isn't enough. After all, we don't necessarily notice the things that don't happen in interactions as much as we notice the things that do happen. And that's why you want to make sure to take another trick from Sean's playbook, which is the question preamble. Watch here.
In that 20 years, the TV food scene, it's exploded. You know, from the stand and stir shows to the cooking competition boom to the current obsession with culinary travel. And when you look at that timeline, because you've spent about 20 years in this game now, what do you see as some of the watershed moments, the highlights and the lowlights when you look at that time?
You just saw Sean and see something almost coming off of the necessary. After all, of course, the guest is going to know about their own past. But this makes a clear distinction between Sean and interviewers who haven't done their research, and it makes the guest reciprocate his effort in that response.
Do you still dream of having a chicken TV show where you have celebrities do voices for the chickens? And if so, who are the actors at the top of your list?
Yeah. How you know about the chicken cartoon?
Do you remember about celebrating with Lil Wayne?
That night. Y'all really did your information, huh? Y'all really did your homework.
In your own life, opening with a short preamble is an excellent way to begin a conversation with a recognizable name that you may encounter at a meet and greet, or if you're sending a cold outreach email. Just one or two sentences that highlight a specific, perhaps more obscure element of their work immediately separates you from the pack. And I say this from personal experience. When I receive emails with just those one or two sentences that indicate someone has invested in my content, I am much more likely to respond compared to someone who appears to have sent out a mass depersonalized email. So show off what you know a bit. One caveat, do not fall into the trap of fawning the entire interaction. Just one or two sentences at the beginning is plenty. You want to connect with the individual on a personal level, which brings us to our next point. Steer conversations towards things that elicit emotion. For instance, someone's passion. Just watch John Boyega's eyes when he's asked about something that he loves.
So, First We Feast recently did a deep dive into the connection between anime and hip-hop. on this new show that we have called Gochi Gang, and I know that you're a huge fan.
This is important because often when we meet someone that we admire, we go with the logistical things that we'd like to know the answer to. How did you start? What would you recommend to someone at my age? What can I do to get a job working with you? And in addition to being the most common questions that people in the public world may receive, those are also questions that don't engage anyone on an emotional level. Now, you may not know John Boyega loves anime and hip-hop, but you can still steer questions towards an emotional response by using the best and worst structure, which is one of Sean's favorites. Just watch.
What was the best thing about living in Iowa, and then what was the worst thing about living in Iowa?
Oh, wow, good question.
What do you see as some of the watershed moments, the highlights and the lowlights?
In asking these highlight and lowlight questions, the best and the worst, Sean gets people to talk about the things that we all find irresistible. First off, it's the things that we love. Those are the things that we can go on forever about. Here, Sean is asking Adam Carolla about his love of crows, and he waxes philosophical.
Crows.
I love crows.
Can you tell me why you love those squawking birds so much, and describe it to me in as much detail as possible? Okay.
Now, when people are sharing their lowlights, they often won't share things that are sad. In fact, those are things that tend to get people to love. When you ask them more directly about things that frustrate them, well, people will talk your ear off. And it's partially because we're often told not to complain. So when someone gives us the green light, it feels so good to finally vent about something we find annoying.
Where are pitch crews more likely to be parodies of themselves? In Hollywood or in Silicon Valley? That's a great question.
I think Silicon Valley. Literally did it.
I can wear a bone helmet.
I just gotta tell you about my company. I just gotta tell you about my company. Let me just tell you about my company. I have to tell you about my company.
In either case, if things
Is it
that
me or
people
did
love
the
and things that
music
they
get
find frustrating,
louder?
the guest's enthusiasm for the conversation spikes, and this is something that gets associated with the question asker if you're using this technique, you. So for instance, say that you get to the end of an interview for your dream job, and you're asked, so do you have any questions for me? Much better than asking, well, how do you like working here, is to adjust the question and ask instead, so tell me, what would you say are the best moments or highlights of your job, and what would you say the lowlights are, or maybe the most frustrating things? The emotional charge immediately generates more interest. But of course, impressing people that you admire goes beyond just asking questions, which is why you see Sean demonstrating that he isn't just a replaceable, starstruck, question-asking machine. For instance, he'll playfully tease guests like here, when he jokes about Rhett and Link's cheesy intros. Here's one for those of you that are unfamiliar.
Who knows if Pizza Hut is better?
Let's talk about that.
And here Sean is teasing them about it.
What we'll do is try to guess the flavor.
Oh, you making fun of us?
If I were making fun of you, maybe I'd say something like, which cream is the dream? Let's talk about it. But I'm not going to say that.
Similarly, when people poke fun at Sean, he's comfortable shooting back a zinger, like here.
Why am I asking a snowstorm of a man?
Oh, how dare you?
Is it Hindi or Urdu? Like talking to an H&R Block.
Okay, alrighty then.
On the channel, I've advised against being sarcastic, and I'm not telling you to do that here. But this willingness to be playful highlights one of the most important things that people leave out of their encounters with those they admire. They don't have the willingness to take the risk and have some fun. We can become so afraid of messing up that we wind up being completely vanilla, which of course backfires when we don't stand out at all. So recognize if you have a tendency to be especially literal when you're nervous, and if it's the case, lean towards cracking more jokes when you're around people that you want to impress. A very simple way to do this is by not answering every question that is asked of you in a totally serious manner. Sean demonstrates how to do this here.
That's not normal.
No.
In fact, this program's not normal.
No.
Have you ever killed anybody?
We haven't heard from Coolio in a long time.
Seriously.
In the same vein, when we want to impress someone, we sometimes lose our ability to comfortably express disagreement, even if it's about something as simple as whether or not a movie that we both saw is good or bad. Now, this is one that we don't get much chance to see in the Hot Ones format, but there is another famous host who does this very well, and that is Joe Rogan. You can dive into the entire breakdown we did on him, linked in the description, but here's just one example of how to disagree with someone in a way that is assertive while still remaining polite, and it's by highlighting where you still agree prior to disagreeing.
You beat Gonzaga. It was a good fight. Yeah. You're a very good fighter. That's not what the issue is. The issue is, can you become a champion? If you can't become a champion, are you comfortable with getting knocked out 3 or 4 more times?
You could see more details on Joe Rogan in the video on him, but the point for this video, whenever it comes to people that you want to impress, is to just make sure that you aren't stifling your own thoughts and opinions in an attempt to come off as agreeable. And that really takes us to the mindset that makes all of this much easier to incorporate and act upon. When it comes to those people that you want to impress, you need to see past what they may represent to you to the human beneath. You see, it's very easy to see people as icons. You may focus on how they can help you to get promoted, or the book that they wrote, or how impressive their following must be. And when you do that, it makes you feel completely separate, different, and maybe even beneath them. But when you see them as human, you recognize that they probably have a life a lot like yours outside of their public persona. They might like to goof off with their friends, brag about their kids, argue about sports, or nerd out about their favorite fantasy series. And when you look for those aspects, you get curious about exactly the things that they want to connect over, but everyone else just breezes past. And you realize that you're not so different, which helps diminish the gulf that you may unconsciously place between you. Asking about their personal interests, or cracking a joke, or even having a spirited disagreement come much more naturally when you see people not just as the role, but as a human. If you feel like your social confidence can be inconsistent or just not there in the moments where you most need it, like with superiors, our Charisma University program comes with a 30-day action guide that gives you a step-by-step path to unshakable confidence in that situation and many, many more. You can read all about the program with the link below, but the strongest way, I believe, is to let you know what members have said about the course themselves. So here are just a few things that CU members have written in. The first is from someone who used CU in an interview, and she says, "I love the way that you lay out the charisma styles. It was awesome to see which one fit my personality. Of the 5, I found the authenticity style really resonated with me. I was super honest and authentic during the interview for my current job. I was interviewing my boss as much as she was interviewing me. I got the job, and my boss still mentions my interview and my honesty to this day." Another member wrote in, "I was really bad at expressing myself in situations that weren't one-on-one. In conversation, I'd find myself hesitant to speak, or I'd get caught in my own head overthinking things. After CU, I am now way more confident in saying what I think or how I feel, even in bigger group settings. I feel way more happy all the time. I was even able to talk to a woman I've had a crush on for over a year and make a good first impression. Overall, I love this course, and I keep coming back to it when I need a refresher on the daily action modules." And lastly, one member writes, "Thank you so much for this program. After going through Charisma University, I've made more friends, have higher self-esteem, and can more easily talk to people I don't know. I've solidified my values, and I know who I am now." Now, you can see more success stories like those in the comments if you decide to join the course, and if you do, it comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee, 100% for any reason at all. And that's 60 days, even though the course only takes 30 to complete, just to make sure that every single member truly feels that they are getting a ton of value from the course. So if you want to check out the course, go ahead, click the link on screen now or below in the description to do so. We've had thousands of members go through this course and get a ton out of it, and I'd love for you to do the same, especially given that the new year is right around the corner, and this can be a fantastic resolution. Either way, I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Timothée Chalamet has 2 traits you don't often see go hand in hand. He's self-admittedly very awkward, and yet women find him incredibly attractive.
So hot. Timothy, I'm waiting for him to get like a little bit older, you know, like so talented and hot.
I'm obsessed with Timothée Chalamet.
Talented and hot. Timothy, I'm waiting for him to get like a little bit older, you know, like so talented and hot.
I'm obsessed with Timothée Chalamet. Yeah, I'm not alone.
No, you're not alone, not at all, no.
He's
talented and hot. Timothy, I'm
self-admittedly very awkward, and yet has 2 traits you don't often see go hand in hand. He's self-admittedly very awkward, and yet women find him incredibly attractive.
so hot. Timothy, I'm waiting for him to get like a little bit older, you know, like so talented and hot.
I'm obsessed with Timothée Chalamet. Yeah, I'm not alone.
No, you're not alone, not at all, no.
He's like Lady Crack.
I just bought a Chalamet and Netflix t-shirt. He's a little green.
This is interesting because Timothy is not your stereotypical jock alpha male in either looks or personality. He's shy and at times seems uncomfortable when speaking, looking down, fidgeting, or putting his hands in his pockets. How can someone who's self-admittedly awkward be so attractive? While he's definitely handsome, much of Timothy's attractiveness comes through in his personality. You can hear it in the way people describe him.
He's a dreamboat.
He has that kind of energy that draws you in.
Yeah.
You know, he's
Yeah.
so charismatic.
Part of what makes Timothy so magnetic is how well he handles potentially awkward moments. So in this video, we'll go over 7 tricks you can learn from Timothy to turn your awkward moments into moments where you're actually making yourself more attractive. The first thing you'll notice in a lot of Timothy's awkward moments is that even when he feels nervous, he radiates positivity. Here's a quick example.
When you come out of the gate like this, do you worry about like what your
Of course I'm worried.
Yeah, right. You do. Yeah.
Best work
His
for
words
you.
say he's worried, but he's got a big smile and positive energy. By not feeling the need to hide that you're nervous and by having that positive body language, you make yourself attractive. You seem simultaneously genuine and confident. Here's another quick example. For context, in the movie Call Me By Your Name, Timothy has sex with a peach. It's understandably something he's a bit awkward about. Rather than shrinking into himself, he maintains upbeat positive energy when he talks about it. Once again, laughing as he speaks.
There's a scene where, I don't know how to describe this. There's a peach, and in life one has to explore sometimes.
Right.
And the exploration commences.
Right, exactly.
He's even able to make a joke about it.
So people have been mentioning this to you a lot?
You say like, are you worried? I'm worried like 50 years from now I'll be like signing peaches behind a desk.
Someone who draws into themselves when embarrassed can make you feel uncomfortable because you mirror their discomfort. But if you react like Timothy does with his positive body language, you actually make it fun to be around you when you're embarrassed. Positivity is a key part of being charismatic. It can even help you recover from one of the most feared social outcomes, being made fun of. Most people dread the possibility of being teased for their awkwardness. This makes them hesitate in social situations, overanalyzing what to say because they're worried about looking bad. But you don't have to fear being teased. In fact, you can come across as attractive after being made fun of. Similar to the first point, the trick is to appear unfazed by smiling or laughing through the tease. Watch this next clip to see a lower energy example. Jimmy Kimmel asks him a question about his GQ cover photo that would make most people feel awkward. But Timothy answers with a calm voice and a smile.
And I think you've plucked your eyebrows a little since then, huh?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Listen, I'm French, you know? Us French people get...
What's the plan for the Oscars? Who are you bringing with you?
I'll go with my family. I'll go with my mom, my dad, and my sister.
It's not easy to smile when someone teases you, but we'll go through a mindset in about 30 seconds that helps tremendously. First, here's 2 more quick examples to watch. Notice how Timothy smiles each time he gets teased for what he said.
I got paparazzi for the first time the other day. You got paparazzi'd? Is that how do you say it?
That's a verb. That's a verb, yeah.
It's a verb. How do you say it when it happens? I went with my mom, and I didn't think that was going to be like the most fun +1, but it was. It was like a really great time.
You can't say that on TV.
All
right, let's get back to it.
Which camera's mom? That one? Love you, Mom. Okay.
Some people mistakenly think that being teased in front of someone automatically makes you seem unattractive or low status. That's actually not the case. Close friends will often tease each other as a sign of endearment. The mistake that makes you seem unattractive or low status is if you take on defeated body language after being teased, such as a frown, a dropped gaze, or a quieter voice. This makes it seem like you think the tease is an actual criticism. That said, you don't want to fake a smile. The goal is to genuinely not take being teased personally. There's an easy trick to this. Don't assume negative intent in ambiguous situations. It's tempting to think that someone who teases you wants to hurt your feelings. However, assuming negative intent will only make you feel more wounded and insecure. Eventually, that insecurity will leak out into conversation. We covered this in detail in our video 5 common habits that make people instantly dislike you, so we'll go through it quickly here. When you read negative intent into ambiguous comments, you leave a bad impression, like Brie Larson did in her viral Wired interview.
Would Brie Larson work out? Like, hypothetically, would I at some point? Is that like a personal attack or something? Or is that a request? Do you think I should? Yeah, I work out a lot. Thanks for asking.
If you think of something as a personal attack, it will always feel like a putdown instead of a friendly tease. So how is Timothy able to smile genuinely and interpret teasing as friendly? He believes that nobody cares that much about your flaws. For instance, listen to him discuss the terrible haircut he had to walk around with when shooting The King.
Very appropriate for the film. Are you happy it's grown out?
Yeah, I'm happy to be done with it. And, you know, the big lesson is, like, nobody cares. And that's the lesson of life, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know, for things of hair, personality, whatever. You think people are, no one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares.
Now that said, there are real bullies, and if people are actually bullying you, you don't want to just smile and take it. You want to stand up for yourself. If you want to know more about that topic, we'll link to our video, How to Stand Up for Yourself Without Starting a Fight.
There are people right now in jail serving life sentences for a crime they did not commit because they were manipulated by someone that they trusted. In this video, I'm going to show you 6 ways to recognize when someone's trying to manipulate you and how to counter those attempts, whether it's legally, socially, at the workplace, or even at home.
So it's possible that you're blocking that out, putting yourself down the road where you wanted to be. You got to do that.
So what they did is they took a vehicle that was similar to Kenny's.
I could help you with that.
Parked it out there, and somehow were able to get an overview shot of that crime scene, suggesting that his vehicle was able to be pictured during the purported crime. And that was untrue.
What's going on, everyone? Spidey here. Welcome to the Behavioral Arts. And 2 weeks ago, I uploaded a video on the channel all about false confessions. I showed you real footage of a real criminal interrogation, and I showed you exactly how you can tell that the guy was being mostly honest and truthful, but he was still found guilty and spent decades in jail for something he didn't do because he was manipulated by the interrogators. In the comments of that video, a lot of you expressed concern and asked me, how can we know when someone's trying to manipulate us like that, and how can we stop them? Now, it's very unlikely that anyone watching this video will ever find themselves in a situation like that, but unfortunately the interrogation room is not the only place where manipulation happens. It can happen in your social life, it can happen at your workplace, it can happen in your personal life, and in this video I'm going to tell you exactly how to spot it and counter it. Now, before we learn these methods, I want to talk to you about the very important difference between persuasion, manipulation, and gaslighting. Persuasion is something I've studied almost my entire life. I now teach it to sales teams, to individuals. It's used in marketing, it's used in sales, and it's not a bad thing for 2 reasons. First of all, persuasion is not based in lies. I would never tell someone to make something up just to persuade someone. And second, and most importantly, with persuasion, there's no losing side. Either one side wins or both sides win. Manipulation, however, is a whole other story. First of all, manipulation is often based in lies. Manipulators have no problem exaggerating or completely making things up to get their desired outcome. And second of all, with manipulation, there is a losing side. And I hate that. I hate when people use psychology to take advantage of other people. So with manipulation, one side is going to gain, but on the other side, there's going to be a loss, whether it is psychological, emotional, or material. And finally, gaslighting is the absolute worst version of manipulation because those lies are cranked to the max. So someone who's gaslighting is going to throw a whole bunch of lies at you because they want you to question your entire reality and they want to break down your psyche. And that thing I was talking about with gain and loss is also cranked to the max. A gaslighter wants to take everything and leave you with nothing. It's horrifying. I hate everything about it. And if the only thing that comes from this video is that someone who's watching this realizes that you or someone that you love is being gaslighted or manipulated, then this will have been the most important video I've ever made. So now I'm going to give you 6 ways to know when someone's trying to manipulate you. And for each one, I'm going to give you at least one non-confrontational counter to even the playing field. But before I do me a huge favor, guys, hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on for more amazing psychology content. Oh, and that wasn't manipulation, by the way. If you subscribe, I will definitely gain by you being here, and I'm hoping you will gain from the content of this channel. So that wasn't manipulation. Let's look at the real manipulation stuff. The first sign of manipulation is that manipulators are extremely goal-oriented. They really are focused on a specific end result, and it doesn't matter how they get there. They don't care about the journey. They don't care about the ethics. They really have that end goal in mind. So this can be something as innocent as a salesperson who seems really keen on selling you a specific item, or maybe you're on a date and the person you're on a date with seems really stuck on going back to their place at the end of the night. So how do we deal with this? We're gonna ask a very simple question, and the question is this: what other options do we have? There are 2 reasons this is very effective. First off, Asking questions is typically a very good counter to manipulation, because manipulators are trying to dominate the conversation and trying to lead it, and often whoever asks the questions is leading that portion of the conversation. Typically we see questions as the offense and answers as the defense. So the moment you ask a question, any question, now they're on the defense and you've flipped the script. The second reason this is great is because when you say, what other options do we have? First of all, notice we, like we're doing this together. They're not going to say, we don't have any other options, this is what we're doing, because that would be admitting that they're trying to manipulate you. Instead, they're going to have to think about other options, and just the fact that they're considering other options weakens that stubborn end goal. This counter is also a really great test to know if they are in fact manipulating you, because if you say, what other options do we have, and they get offended or they seem angry by you wanting different options, you can be pretty sure that they were trying to manipulate you towards that end goal. So let's go back to the date example from earlier, who's really stuck on going back to their place at the end of the night. Well, when you say, what other options do we have, now they have to come back with, oh, well, we can have some drinks, we can go to the movies, and in their head, it's detaching them from that stubborn outcome that they had stuck in there. The second sign of manipulation and gaslighting is that they will tell you what mental or emotional state you are in. Now, we know psychologically that this is a powerful thing, that you can make someone feel a certain state just by talking about it. Hypnotists use it all the time. They say things like, notice how calm you feel, notice how relaxing that is, because we know that when your mind thinks about the state of relaxation, it can relax. The mind can create sensations that you feel. I can prove it to you right now. Take a deep breath as you listen to this video, and I want you to imagine under your feet a tingling going back and forth, almost like a soft tickle. Maybe it's more on one side, maybe it's more on the other side, or maybe it's under both.
I can help you with that.
Do you notice that? Do you feel it? Let me know in the comments how that worked for you, but that has over 90% success rate. More than 9 out of 10 people feel tingles under their feet just by thinking about it. Now in manipulation, it's not relaxation, calmness, or a tingle under the feet. It's darker things. A manipulator will often say things like, you're clearly confused. It's okay, you can't remember. You blacked out. A gaslighter will often say things like, you're obviously not in the right state of mind. Your head's not in the right place. You're so angry all the time. So they will tell you how you're feeling, and it's not good feelings. Now I want to show you a really terrifying example of this. The footage we're going to look at is from the confession tapes on Netflix, and the gentleman in the interrogation is Buddy Woodall. Now he is currently serving 3 life sentences in jail. Think about that. While we're sitting here watching videos, talking about psychology, he is in jail for the rest of his life for something he did not do. And I want you to see in this interrogation how often the interrogators were telling him what mindset he's in, and they did it so much that they just broke down his mental state.
So it's possible that you're blocking that out, putting yourself down the road where you wanted to be. You got to do that. Earlier, you said it wasn't possible you were on Bladen Road. You remember? You said it wasn't. I wasn't on Bladen Road. Then your mind opened up a little bit, didn't it? And when it opened up, you realized not only is it possible, but I was there on Bladen Road. You're taking yourself from where you didn't want to be to where you wanted to be in your mind. You see something evil in your mind, and you try to block it out, but you have to. It's so evil that you can't block it out completely.
I could help you with
have to
that.
replace it with something else. No, you're not. You ain't losing your mind. You get your mind right. Your mind is coming around, okay? Open it up. Open it up. Your mind's coming around.
I absolutely hate everything about that, and I'm going to give you 2 ways to counter anytime someone tries to tell you what state you're in. The first one is once again a question, and the question is, why do you say that? So someone's saying, you know, you're confused, it's okay, you can't remember, you go, why do you say that? And now they have to sort of defend that position or explain that position, and they'll quickly realize they can't tell you anything about your own mental state. The second counter is just 2 words, I disagree. That's it. So let's say you're talking to someone and they go, oh, your head isn't on right, and then you go, I disagree. Because what are they going to do now? They're going to argue with you over what's happening in your head? That's ridiculous. So anytime someone's trying to tell you what's happening in your head, first of all, That's ridiculous. How do they think they know more than you? But by saying either one of these things, you make them realize you don't know what's happening in my head. I know what's happening in my head. Thank you very much. The third technique that manipulators and gaslighters use a lot is that they present their personal opinions as facts. In fact, remember this. Anytime someone presents their personal opinion as fact, they're attempting to manipulate you whether they know it or not. Let's look at some examples of this. So it could be something as innocent as a salesperson saying, "This is the computer for you." That's not a fact, that's an opinion. But it could get a lot more serious, like an interrogator saying, "I think we both know you and the victim didn't get along." That could very well be an opinion. This is a little more gaslighting, but someone you're in a relationship with saying, "And you're always out flirting with other people, it's really disrespectful to me." Or socially, someone saying, "You need to exercise more." That's not a fact. Exercise is good for you, that's a fact. But saying you need to exercise more, they don't know. They don't know how much you exercise. They don't know what's good for you. So how do we counter it? Once again, it's a question, and it's one of my favorite ones. It's just 4 words, and if you forget the other questions, this one is actually quite versatile, and it's, how do you know? I love this one because what it does is it takes their little opinion and it throws it out the window. Like, your opinion doesn't matter, give me the facts. Like someone who says, "You're always out flirting," and they're trying to gaslight you to feel bad, and you go, "How do you know?" So now they have to provide some sort of evidence, and you've leveled the playing ground. It's also great in an interrogation because they're trying to dominate and they're trying to put these ideas in your head. "We know you didn't get along," and you go, "How do you know?" So now they're on the defense, and once again, the conversation becomes a lot more equal. The fourth manipulation technique is something I call ambiguous social proof. Now, social proof in itself is a really strong psychological principle. We study in persuasion, marketing, sales, and it's the idea that if you tell someone what other people like them are doing, it causes them to want to behave the same way. And this has been tested and proven again and again and again. And it's based on the fact that in tribal times, if we didn't fit in, it was a threat to our survival. So we evolved knowing that fitting in assures your survival. This is the reason I get emails from Wayfair that say everyone's ditching their sectional sofas, or McDonald's says over 1 billion served. This is social proof marketing. But ambiguous social proof is very different than that because it's not based in fact at all. This is the manipulator attempting to use social proof in order to manipulate you to think that there's something horribly wrong here. So they might say something like, "Oh, everybody knows how angry you get all the time," or "Everybody at the party was talking about how you embarrassed yourself." This is something gaslighters will use a lot. Everybody says this. We all know it. This is a big problem. So how do we counter it? Well, you can ask one of the questions from earlier, like how do you know that, or why do you say that, so that now they have to bring facts and they have to back that up. But the best way to counter ambiguous social proof is ambiguous social proof. So if someone's trying to gaslight you and they say something like, "Everybody says how angry you are," you simply come back with, "Oh, that's funny. Everybody I talk to says how much of a happy person I am." Because now they realize how ridiculous their statement is and that this invisible everybody doesn't matter, and now it goes right out the window. The only thing they could come back with is to say, "Well, who says that? Tell me who says that." And you can go, "Well, no, you said it first. Who says your thing?" And most of the time, they're really not going to have too many examples in mind. Okay, tip number 5 is that manipulators, and more particularly someone who's gaslighting, prefer to work one-on-one because they know it's a lot harder to manipulate a group of people, and it's harder to manipulate someone when there's witnesses around. Now, am I suggesting that every time somebody wants to talk to you privately that they're going to manipulate or gaslight you? No. But if you start to see some of these signs within that one-on-one interaction, there's a good chance. So how do you deal with that? Quite simply, you consult a third party. And as much as possible, that third party is present as a witness. So the most obvious application of this is in legal situations where you ask for a lawyer. Make this a rule in your head, never deviate, really drill it in there. If ever somebody who works in law enforcement asks you if you can go in to answer some questions, always answer, "I would absolutely love to," the moment my lawyer gets here. Always, regardless of what's happening, it doesn't matter, because you might be in there to cooperate and help them, and they might seem like they're doing the same, but that is not what's happening. And as we saw, there are people spending their lives in jail because that didn't work out for them. So The moment that happens, lawyer up. But in sales as well, let's say you're gonna go buy a car or you're gonna make a big purchase, bring someone with you. People will attempt manipulation less when there's someone else present. But what do you do if there isn't anybody present? So you're having a one-on-one interaction with someone and just throwing these things at you and they're badgering you. Well, you could quite simply say something like, hold on, I just want to verify that. And that will make a gaslighter really, really nervous. They don't like to be disproven. So if they say something like, you were so embarrassing at the event last week, and you go, oh, okay, hold on, that's actually concerning. Let me call my friend David and see if he agrees. You're gonna see a lot of nervousness there. They might even abandon the whole conversation in a rage, but that's fine, that's on them. So you can fact check with a third party. Now I'm sure you guys could see how a lot of these techniques work together. So let's say Mr. Gaslight is like, oh, everyone knows how angry you always are. And you go, actually, everyone tells me how much of a happy person I am. And they go, no, nobody says that, you're always so angry. You can now go, you know what, I'm really curious, let's call one of our mutual friends and see what they say. So you're using the ambiguous social proof, you're using the third party witness. So you can use a lot of these in a lot of different contexts, but the bottom line is the same. You're trying to go more towards fact and away from opinion and made up stuff. Speaking of made up stuff, we are now at the last and in my opinion, worst indicator of manipulation. This is something I have absolutely no tolerance for. And before I tell you what it is, I want you to look at this footage. The man in the video is Kenneth Osborne, who in 2008 was arrested and convicted of kidnapping and murder. And he was sent to jail for the rest of his life. And I want you to see what happened in his interrogation.
They have satellites that are over our head right now that keep constant 24-hour surveillance of everything that goes on. And I've got these photographs at the time of the 28th, the day that she disappeared. And it's got a white truck on 43 Canal Road. And Ken, it's your truck.
So what they did is they took a vehicle that was similar to Kenny's, parked it out there, and somehow were able to get an overview shot of that crime scene, suggesting that his vehicle was able to be pictured during the purported crime. And that was untrue.
They used a phony picture of a truck that looked like his near the site of the crime to convince him that he was there. I don't even think they realize how messed up and unacceptable that is. There are countless studies that show that if you give someone evidence of something that didn't happen and it looks realistic enough, it will actually cause them to fabricate a memory. One of my favorite studies in this field is by Kimberly Wade, and it's called A Picture is Worth 1,000 Lies, using false photographs to create false childhood memories. In this study, they showed a bunch of people who had never been on a hot air balloon in their lives a picture of them as a child on a hot air balloon. It was completely photoshopped. And in 50% of cases, people recalled the day and they gave their experience and they talked about how it was, even if it wasn't even a real thing. The reason for this is because our memory is a highly flawed system. It's built for practicality, not for accuracy. So very often, especially if there's a lot of emotions involved, or if it was a little while ago, we take in those emotions, we take our creativity, our imagination, we take memories from other events, and we could fabricate things and we could swear to remember things that never actually happened. So when you're in an interrogation and you're showing a guy a picture that is not real, you could be causing something in his head that never happened. So here are two ways to avoid this at all costs. First, be excessively critical. If something feels even a little bit wrong, stop and think about it. Ask for more evidence. Ask them those questions we talked about earlier. How do you know? Why do you say that? Get all the facts. And if it feels wrong, don't accept someone else's opinion. Form your own, especially in sensitive conversations like an interrogation. Second counter is that people who are exaggerating or fabricating, especially on this level, are also lying, and we can see indicators of deception all over their behavior. So guys, on the channel, I talk a lot about lie detection. I have tons of videos that explain how you can know when someone's lying to you. I give great tips. I analyze actual footage and tell you what to look for. And the reason I do this is because I don't want people to be manipulated or deceived. So check out the content. I'm going to work on so much more. and really own that skill, because if you're ever in a situation where someone is making stuff up, those red signals are going to go on and you're going to go, hold on, something's not right here. And that intuition, that sense you have of something doesn't add up here, is often the best
Silence
way
of the
to avoid
lambs.
manipulation. There it was, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a lot to take in, but I'm hoping you guys took some notes, or you're going to go back and watch it again and try to see how you can adapt this to situations in your life where you might face manipulation. And if you're stuck on anything, please, guys, ask me in the comments. If there's a specific scenario you're not sure how to handle it, let me know in the comments. I will help you figure this out. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you on the next one.
No more moves? I need some more moves.
Welcome. I'm very excited today to talk about effective speaking in spontaneous situations. I thank you all for joining us, even though the title of my talk is grammatically incorrect. I thought that would scare a few of you away. But I learned teaching here at the business school, catching people's attention is hard. So something as simple as that I thought might draw a few of you here. So this is going to be a highly interactive and participative workshop today. If you don't feel comfortable participating, that's completely fine. But do know I'm going to ask you to talk to people next to you. There'll be opportunities to stand up and practice some things, because I believe the way we become effective communicators is by actually communicating. So let's get started right away. I'd like to ask you all to read this sentence. And as you read this sentence, what's most important to me is that you count the number of F's that you find in this sentence. Please count the number of F's. Keep it quiet to yourself. Give you just another couple seconds here. 3, 2, 1. Raise your hand, please, if you found 3 and only 3 F's. Excellent. Great. Did anybody find 4? Okay. Anybody find only 5 F's? And anybody find 6? There's 6 F's. What 2-letter word ending in F did many of us miss? Of. We'll make sure to get this to you so you can torment your friends and family at a later date. When I first was exposed to this over 12 years ago, I only found 3, and I felt really stupid. So I like to start every workshop, every class I teach with this to pass that feeling. No, that's not why I do this. I do this because this is a perfect analogy for what we're going to be talking about today. The vast majority of us in this room, very smart people in this room, were not as effective as we could have been in this activity. We didn't get it right. And the same is true when it comes to speaking in public, particularly when spontaneous speaking. It's little things that make a big difference in being effective. So today we're going to talk about little things in terms of your approach, your attitude, your practice, that can change how you feel when you speak in public. And we're going to be talking primarily about one type of public speaking. Not the type that you plan for in advance, the type that you actually spend time thinking about, you might even create slides for. These are the keynotes, the conference presentation, the formal toasts.
Jesus,
That's
why are
not
we
what we're
talking about
talking
work
about
right
today.
now, my guy?
We're talking about spontaneous speaking. When you're in a situation that you're asked to speak off the cuff and in the moment. What we're going through today is actually the result of a workshop I created here for the business school. Several years ago, a survey was taken among the students, and they said, what are things we could do to help make you more successful here? And at the top of that list was this notion of responding to cold calls. Does everybody know what a cold call is? It's where the mean professor like me looks at some students and says, what do you think? And there was a lot of panic and a lot of silence. So as a result of that, this workshop was created, and a vast majority of first-year students here at the GSB go through this workshop. So I'm going to walk you through sort of a hybrid version of what they do. The reality is that spontaneous speaking is actually more prevalent than planned speaking. Perhaps it's giving introductions. You're at a dinner and somebody says, you know so-and-so, would you mind introducing them? Maybe it's giving feedback in the moment. Your boss turns to you and says, would you tell me what you think? It could be a surprise toast. Or finally, it could be during the Q&A session. And by the way, we will leave plenty of time at the end of our day today for Q&A. I'd love to hear the questions you have about this topic or other topics related to communicating. So our agenda is simple. In order to be an effective communicator, regardless of if it's planned or spontaneous, you need to have your anxiety under control. So we'll start there. Second, what we're going to talk about is some ground rules for the interactivity we'll have today, and then finally we're going to get into the heart of what we will be covering. And again, as I said, lots of activity, and I invite you to participate. So let's get started with anxiety management. 85% of people tell us that they're nervous when speaking in public. And I think the other 15% are lying. Okay? We could create a situation where we could make them nervous too. In fact, just this past week, a study from Chapman nervous too. 15% are lying. Tell us that they're nervous when speaking management. And I invite in it. So we'll start
Sorry, I had to
there.
start that over so I can back up.
Second, what we're going to talk about is some ground rules for the interactivity we'll have today, and then finally we're going to get into the heart of what we will be covering. And again, as I said, lots of activity, and I invite you to participate.
I will be saving this.
So let's get started with anxiety management. 85% of people tell us that they're nervous when speaking in public, and I think the other 15% are lying. Okay? We could create a situation where we could make them nervous too. In fact, just this past week, a study from Chapman University asked Americans, what are the things you fear most? And among being caught in a surprise terrorist attack, having your identity stolen, was public speaking. Among the top 5.
That's fucked up. Top 5. Caught in a terrorist attack. Public speaking. That's dirty as shit. Fucked up.
Was speaking in front of others. This is a ubiquitous fear, and one that I believe we can learn to manage. And I use that word manage very carefully because I don't think we ever want to overcome it. Anxiety actually helps us. It gives us energy, helps us focus, tells us what we're doing is important, but we want to learn to manage it. So I'd like to introduce you to a few techniques that can work, and all of these techniques are based on academic research. But before we get there, I'd love to ask you, what does it feel like when you're sitting in the audience watching a nervous speaker present? How do you feel? Just shout out a few things. How do you feel? Uncomfortable. I heard many of you going, yes, uncomfortable. It feels very awkward, doesn't it? So what do we do? Now, a couple of you probably like watching somebody suffer, okay? But most of us don't. So what do? We sit there and we nod and we smile, or we disengage. And to the nervous speaker looking out at his or her audience, seeing a bunch of people nodding or disengaged, that does not help. Okay? So we need to learn to manage our anxiety, because fundamentally, your job as a communicator, regardless of if it's planned or spontaneous, is to make your audience comfortable. Because if they're comfortable, they can receive your message. And when I say comfortable, I am not referring to the fact that your message has to be sugar-coated and nice for them to hear. It can be a harsh message, but they have to be in a place where they can receive it. So it's incumbent on you as a communicator to help your audience feel comfortable. And we do that by managing our anxiety. So let me introduce you to a few techniques that I think you can use right away to help you feel more comfortable. The first has to do with when you begin to feel those anxiety symptoms. For most people, this happens in the initial minutes prior to speaking. In this situation, what happens is many of us begin to feel whatever it is that happens to you. Maybe your stomach gets a little gurgly, maybe your legs begin to shake, maybe you begin to perspire. And then we start to say to ourselves, oh my goodness, I'm nervous. Uh-oh, they're going to tell I'm nervous. This is not going to go well. And we start spiraling out of control. So research on mindful attention tells us that when we begin to feel those anxiety symptoms, we simply greet our anxiety and say, hey, this is me feeling nervous. I'm about to do something of consequence. And simply by greeting your anxiety and acknowledging it, that it's normal and natural. Heck, 85% of people tell us they have it. You actually can stem the tide of that anxiety spiraling out of control. It's not necessarily going to reduce the anxiety, but it will stop it from spinning
I
out.
could help you with that.
So the next time you begin to feel those anxiety signs, take a deep breath.
I
and
could
say,
help
this
you
is
with
me
that.
feeling anxious. I notice a few of you taking some notes. There's a handout that will come at the end that has everything that I'm supposed to say. Okay? Can't guarantee I'm going to say it, but you'll have it there. In addition to this approach, a technique that works very well, and this is a technique that I helped do some research on way back when I was in graduate school, has to do with reframing how you see the speaking situation. Most of us, when we are up presenting, planned or spontaneous, we feel that we have to do it right. And we feel like we are performing. How many of you have ever acted, done singing or dancing? I'm not going to ask for performances now. Okay. Many of you have. We should note that we could do next year maybe a talent show of alums. It looks like we got the talent there. That's great. So when you perform, you know that there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. If you don't hit the right note or your right line at the right time, at the right place, you've made a mistake. It messes up the audience. It messes up the people on stage. But when you present, there is no right way. There's certainly better and worse ways, but there is no one right way. So we need to look at presenting as something other than performance. And what I'd like to suggest is what we need to see this as a conversation. Right now, I'm having a conversation with 100+ people, rather than saying I'm performing for you. But it's not enough just to say, this is a conversation. I want to give you some concrete things you can do. First, start with questions. Questions, by their very nature, are dialogic. They're two-way. What was one of the very first things I did here for you? I had you count the number of F's and raise your hands. I asked you a question. That gets your audience involved. It makes it feel to me as the presenter as if we are in conversation. So use questions. They can be rhetorical, they can be polling. Perhaps I actually want to hear information from you. In fact, I use questions when I create an outline for my presentations. Rather than writing bullet points, I list questions that I'm going to answer. And that puts me in that conversational mode. If you were to look at my notes for today's talk, you'll see it's just a series of questions. Right now I'm answering the question, how do we manage our anxiety? Beyond questions, another very useful technique for making us conversational is to use conversational language. Many nervous speakers distance themselves physically. If you've ever seen a nervous speaker present, he or she will say something like this: "Welcome, I am really excited to be here with you." They pull as far away from you as possible because you threaten us, speakers. You make us nervous, so we want to get away from you. We do the same thing linguistically. We use language that distances ourselves. It's not unusual to hear a nervous speaker say something like, "One must consider the ramifications," or "Today we're going to cover step 1, step 2, step 3. That's very distancing language. To be more conversational, use conversational language. Instead of "one must consider," say, "This is important to you. We all need to be concerned with." Do you hear that inclusive conversational language? Has to do with the pronouns. Instead of step 1, step 2, step 3. First, what we need to do is this. The second thing you should consider is here. Use conversational language. So being conversational can also help you manage your anxiety. The third technique I'd like to share is research that I actually started when I was an undergraduate here. I was very fortunate to study with Phil Zimbardo of the Stanford Prison Experiment fame. Many people don't know that Zim actually was instrumental in starting one of the very first shyness institutes in the world, and especially in the country. And I did some research with him that looked at how your orientation to time influences how you react. And what we learned is if you can bring yourself into the present moment, rather than being worried about the future consequences, you can actually be less nervous. Most of us, when we present, are worried about the future consequences. My students are worried they're not going to get the right grade. Some of you are worried you might not get the funding, you might not get the support, you might not get the laughs that you want. All of those are future states. So if we can bring ourselves into the present moment, we're not going to be as concerned about those future states, and therefore we'll be less nervous. There are lots of ways to become present-oriented. I know a professional speaker. He's paid $10,000 an hour to speak. It's a good gig. He gets very nervous. He's up in front of crowds of thousands. Behind the stage, what he does is 100 push-ups right before he comes out. You can't be that physically active and not be in the present moment. Now, I'm not recommending all of us go to that level of exertion because he starts out of breath and sweaty, right? But a walk around the building before you speak, that can do it. There are other ways. If you've ever watched athletes perform, get ready to do their event, they listen to music. They focus on a song or a playlist that helps get them in the moment. You can do things as simple as counting backwards from 100 by tough numbers like 17. I'm going to pause because I know people in the room are trying. Yeah. Gets hard after that third or fourth one, I know. My favorite way to get present-oriented is to say tongue twisters. Saying a tongue twister forces you to be in the moment, otherwise you'll say it wrong. And it has the added benefit of warming up your voice. Most nervous speakers don't warm up their voice. They retreat inside themselves and start saying all these bad things to themselves. So saying a tongue twister can help you be both present-oriented and warm up your voice. Remember I said today we're going to have a lot of participation? I'm going to ask you to repeat after me my favorite tongue twister. And I like this tongue twister because if you say it wrong, you say a naughty word. And I'm going to be listening to see if I hear any naughty words this morning. Okay? Repeat after me. It's only 3 phrases. I slit a sheet. A sheet I slit. And on that slitted sheet I sit. Oh, very good. No shits. Excellent. Very good. Now, in that moment, you weren't worried about, I'm in front of all these people, this is weird, this guy's having me do this. You were so focused on saying it right and trying to figure out what the naughty word was that you were in the present moment. That's how easy it is. So it's very possible for us to manage our anxiety. We can do it initially by greeting the anxiety when we begin to feel those signs. We can do it when we reframe the situation as a conversation, and we do it when we become present-oriented. Those are 3 of many tools that exist to help you manage your anxiety. If you have questions about other ways, I'm happy to chat with you. And at the end, I'm going to point you to some resources that you can refer to help you find additional sources for you. So let's get started on the core part of what we're doing today, which is how to feel more comfortable speaking in spontaneous situations. Some very simple ground rules for you. First, I'm going to identify 4 steps that I believe are critical to becoming effective at speaking in a spontaneous situation. With each of those steps, I'm going to ask you to participate in an activity. None of them are more painful than saying the tongue twister out loud. They may require you to stand up, they might require you to talk to the person next to you, but none of them are painful. And then finally, I'm going to conclude with a phrase or saying that comes from the wonderful world of improvisation. Through the continuing studies program here at Stanford, for the past 5 years, I have co-taught a class with Adam Tobin. He is a lecturer in the creative arts department. He teaches film and new media. And he's an expert at improv. And we've partnered together to help people learn how to speak more spontaneously. We call it improvisationally speaking. And Adam has taught me wonderful phrases and ideas from improv that I want to impart to you that really stick. That's why I'm sharing them with you, to help you remember these techniques. And again, at the end of all this, you'll get a handout that has this listed. So let's get started. The very first thing that gets in people's way when it comes to spontaneous speaking is themselves. We get in our own way. We want to be perfect. We want to give the right answer. We want our toasts to be incredibly memorable. These things are burdened by our effort, by our trying. The best thing we can do, the first step in our process, is to get ourselves out of the way. Easier said than done. Most of us in this room are in this room because we are type A personalities. We work hard, we think fast, we make sure that we get things right. But that can actually serve as a disservice as we try to speak in the moment. I'd like to demonstrate a little of this for you, and I need your help to do that. So we're going to do our first activity. We are going to do an activity that's called Shout the Wrong Name. In a moment, if you are able and willing, I'm going to ask you to stand. And I am going to ask you for about 30 seconds to look all around you in this environment, and you are going to point at different things. And I know it's rude to point, but for this exercise, please point. I want you to point to things, and you are going to call the things you are pointing to out loud anything but what they really are. So I might point to this and say refrigerator. I might point to this and say cat. I am pointing to anything in your environment around you. It can be the person sitting next to you, standing next to you. You will just shout, and shouting is important, the wrong name. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to stand and do that. Please raise your hand if you already have the first 5 or 6 things you're going to call out. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We stockpile. You all are excellent game players. I told you the game. Shout the wrong name. And you have already begun figuring out how you're going to master the game. That's your brain trying to help you get it right. I'd like to suggest the only way you can get this activity wrong is by doing what you've just done. Okay? There is no way to get this wrong. Okay? Even if I call this a chair, no penalty will be bestowed upon you. Okay? Because I won't know what you were pointing at. You could have been pointing at the floor under the chair, and you called the floor the chair, and you were fine. The point is, we are planning and working to get it right, and there is no way to get it right. Just doing it gets it right. Okay, so let's try this now. We're going to play this game twice. Again, it's for 30 seconds. If you are willing and able, will you please stand up? You can do this seated, by the way, but if you're willing and able, let's stand up. Okay, in a moment, I am about to say go, and I would like for you to point at anything around here, including me. It's okay to point at me. I hope it's not a bad thing you say when you point at me, but point at different things and loudly and proudly call them different than what they are. Ready? Begin. Porcupine, California, salt shaker, car, library, tennis racket, purple, orange, putrid, hello, time. You can stay standing because in a mere moments we're going to do it again. So if you're comfortable standing, we're about to do it again. First, thank you. That was wonderful. I heard great words being called out. It was fun. And some of you in the back were doing it in sync, so it looked like you were doing some 70s disco dance. It was awesome. Okay? This was great. Now, let me ask you just a few questions. Did you notice anything about the words that you were saying? Did we find patterns, perhaps? Maybe some of you were going through fruits and vegetables. A few of you were going through things that started with the letter A, right? That's your brain saying, okay, you told me not to stockpile, so I'm going to try to be a little more devious, and I'm going to give you patterns, okay? Same problem. When we teach that class I told you about, that improvisationally speaking class, we like to say, your brain is there to help you. These things it's doing have helped you be successful, but like a windshield wiper, we just want to wipe those suggestions away and see what happens. Okay? So we're going to do this activity again. This time, try the best you can to thank your brain if it provides you with patterns or stockpiles, and just say, thank you, brain, and disregard them. Okay? So let's see what happens when we're not stockpiling and we're not playing off patterns. We'll do this for only 15 seconds. See how this feels. Baby steps. Ready? Begin. Kodak. Bicycle chain. Skateboard. Bananas. Purple. Putrid. Time. Please have a seat. Thank you again. Did you notice a difference between the second time and the first time? Yes. Was it a little easier that second time? No. That's okay. We're just starting. These skills are not like a light switch. It's not like you learn these skills and then all of a sudden you can execute on them. This is a wonderful game. This is a wonderful game to train your brain to get out of its own way. You can play this game anywhere, anytime. I like to play this game when I'm sitting in traffic. Makes me feel better. I shout things out. They're not the naughty things that I want to be shouting out, but I shout out things and it helps. You're training yourself to get out of your own way. You're working against the muscle memory that you've developed over the course of your life with a brain that acts very fast to help you solve problems. But in essence, in spontaneous speaking situations, you put too much pressure on yourself trying to figure out how to get it right. So a game like this teaches us to get out of our own way. It teaches us to see the things that we do that prevent us from acting spontaneously. In essence, we are reacting rather than responding. To react means to act again. You've thought it and now you're acting on it. That takes too long and it's too thoughtful. We want to respond in a way that's genuine and authentic. So the maxim I would like for you to take from this, and again, these maxims come from improvisation, is one of my favorite: dare to be dull. And in a room like this, telling you dare to be dull is offensive, and I apologize. But this will help. Rather than striving for greatness, dare to be dull. And if you dare to be dull and allow yourself that, you will reach that greatness. It's when you set greatness as your target that it gets in the way of you ever getting there. Because you over-evaluate, you overanalyze, you freeze up. So the first step in our process today is to get out of our own way. Dare to be dull. Easier said than done, but once you practice, and a game just as simple as the one we practiced is a great way to do it. But that's not enough. Getting out of our own way is important, but the second step of our process has us change how we see the situation we find ourselves in. We need to see the speaking opportunity that we are a part of as an opportunity rather than a challenge and a threat. When I coach executives on Q&A skills, when they go in front of the media or whatever, investors, they see it as an adversarial experience, me versus them. And one of the first things I work on is change the way you approach it. A Q&A session, for example, is an opportunity for you. It's an opportunity to clarify. It's an opportunity to understand what people are thinking. So if we look at it as an opportunity, it feels very different. We see it differently, and therefore we have more freedom to respond. When I feel that you are challenging me, I am going to do the bare minimum to respond and protect myself. If I see this as an opportunity where I have a chance to explain and expand, I'm going to interact differently with you. So spontaneous speaking situations are ones that afford you opportunities. So when you're at a corporate dinner and your boss turns to you and says, "Oh, you know him better than the rest. Would you mind introducing him?" You say, "Great, thank you for the opportunity," rather than, right? I better get this right. So see things as an opportunity. I have a game to play to help us with this. This is a fun one. The holidays are approaching. We all in this room are going to give and receive gifts. Here's how this game will work. It works best if you have a partner. So I'm hoping you can work with somebody sitting next to you. If there's nobody sitting next to you, you turn around, introduce yourself, great way to connect. If not, you can play this game by yourself. It's just a little harder and you can't do the second part of the game. So after I explain the game, this gives you a chance to get to know somebody. Here's how it works. If you have a partner, you and your partner are going to exchange imaginary gifts. Okay? Pretend you have a gift. It can be a big gift, it can be a small gift. And you will give your gift to your partner. Your partner will take the gift and open it up and will tell you what you gave them. Because you just gave them a gift. So you are going to open up the box and you're going to look inside and you are going to say the first thing that comes to your mind in the moment, not the thing you have all just thought of. Or the thing after that. Remember what we talked about before? That still plays. That's still in play. Okay, you're stockpiling. Look in there. My favorite that I said, somebody gave me a gift during playing this game. I looked inside and I saw a frog leg. I don't know why I saw a frog leg, but that's what I said. That's the first part of the activity. Now, the opportunity is twofold in this game. The opportunity is for you, the gift receiver, to name a gift. That's kind of fun. That's an opportunity. It's not a threat. But the real opportunity is for the gift giver, because the gift giver then has to say, so you look and you say, thank you for giving me a frog's leg, and the person will look at you and say, I knew you wanted a frog's leg because. So whatever you find, the person who has received it is going to say, absolutely, I'm so glad you're happy. I got it for you because. So you have to respond to whatever they say, right? What a great opportunity. Now, some of you are sitting there going, oh, that's hard. I don't want to do it. I'm going to make a fool out of myself. Others of you are, if you're following this advice, are saying, what a great opportunity, right? So the game, again, is played like this. You and your partner will each will exchange a gift. One will start, then the other will follow. The first person will give a gift to the second person. Second person opens the box, however big the box is. And if the box is big and you find a penny in it, perfect, doesn't matter. If the box is heavy and you find a feather in it, fine. There's no way to get it wrong, okay? Whatever's in the box is in the box. You can return it and get what you wanted later, okay? The person, then, you will name it. You will say, thank you for the, whatever you saw in the box. The person who gave it to you will say, I'm so glad you're excited. I got it for you because. And you will give a reason that you got them whatever they decided you gave them. Make sense? All right. So very quickly, just in 5 seconds, find a partner if you're willing to do this with a partner. Everybody have a partner? Okay. All right. In your partnerships, pick an A person and a B person. You may stand or sit. It's totally up to you. Pick an A and pick a B. Okay? B goes first. Ha, ha, ha. All right. B, give A a gift. B, give A a gift. A, thank them. And then B will name and give the reason they gave it to him. If you have not switched, switch, please. If you have not switched, switch, please. Let's wrap it up in 30 seconds, please. Let's wrap it up. All right, if we can all have our seats. If we can all take our seats, please. I know I'm telling a room of many MBA alums to stop talking, and that's hard. All right, ladies and gentlemen, did you get what you wanted? Pretty neat, huh? You always get what you want. Now, for some of you, this was really hard because you were really taking the challenge and not seeing what was in the box until you looked in there. Okay? Was anybody surprised by what you found in the box? What did you find, sir? What was in the box? What? Wow. Nice. Nice. If you've got a Ferrari, you need a transmission. I like it. Who else found something that was surprising? What did you find? A live unicorn. That's a great gift, right? How was it as the gift giver? Were you surprised at what your partner found in the box? Isn't it interesting that when we give an imaginary gift, knowing that the person's going to name it, we already have in mind what they're going to find? And when they say live unicorn, we go, well, that's interesting, right? So The point of this game is to, one, remind ourselves we have to get out of our own way, like we talked about before, but to see this as an opportunity and to have fun. I love watching people play this game. The number of smiles that I saw amongst you, and I have to admit, when I first started, some of you looked a little dour, a little doubting, okay? But in that last game, you were all smiling and looked like you were having fun. So when you reframe the spontaneous speaking opportunity as an opportunity, as something that you can co-create and share, all of a sudden, you are less nervous, less defensive, and you can accomplish something pretty darn good. In this case, a fun outcome. This reminds us of perhaps the most famous of all improvisation sayings, yes and. A lot of us live our communication lives saying no but. Yes and opens up a tremendous amount of opportunities. And this doesn't mean you have to say yes and to a question somebody asks. This just means the approach you take to the situation. So you're going to ask me questions. That's an opportunity. Yes, and I will follow through. Versus no and being defensive. So we've accomplished the first two steps of our process. First, we get out of our own way, and second, we reframe the situation as an opportunity. The next phase is also hard but very rewarding, and that is to slow down and listen. You need to understand the demands of the requirement you find yourself in order to respond appropriately. But often, we jump ahead. We listen just enough to think we got it, and then we go ahead, starting to think about what we're going to respond, and then we respond. We really need to listen. Because fundamentally, as a communicator, your job is to be in service of your audience. And if you don't understand what your audience is asking or needs, you can't fulfill that obligation. So we need to slow down and listen. I have a fun game to play. In this game, you are going to SPLLEverythingyousay. TOYOURPARTNER. I will translate. You are going to get with the same partner you just worked with, and you are going to have a very brief conversation about something fun that you plan to do today. I know this is the most fun you're going to have all day, but the next fun thing you're going to do today, you are going to tell your partner what you are going to do that will be fun today, but you are going to do so by SPELLINGIT. Okay? So you're going to spell it. It's okay if you are not a good speller. Okay? You'll see the benefit of doing this. So, with the partner you just worked with, person A is going to go first this time. You are simply going to tell your partner, actually you're going to spell to your partner, what it is of fun, something of fun, that you're going to do today. Okay? Do what you were really going to do for fun and not do things like FEEDTHECAT, right? Just because you don't want to spell, right? So you can use big words. All right, 30 seconds each. Spell to your partner something fun that you're going to do today. Would you like to play? Go ahead.
GOTHEGAME.
Oh my goodness, say it again. Spell it again. Yep. Yep. EXCEELLENT. IHOPETHAT THEYWIN. Thank you. That was very good. Thank you.
Is it really no spruce nowhere near?
If you have not switched, switch. Take 30 more seconds with the new partner spelling. GREAT exclamation point. THANKYOU PLEASE Takeyourseat. So what did we learn? What did we learn? Besides that we're not so good at spelling. You have to pause between the words. How did this change your interaction with the person you were interacting with? What did you have to do? Focus and listen. And you can't be thinking ahead. You have to be in the moment. When you listen and truly understand what the person is trying to say, then you can respond in a better way, a more targeted response. We often don't listen. So we start by getting out of our own way. We then reframe the situation as an opportunity. Those are things we do inside our head. But in the moment of interacting, we have to listen first before we can respond to the spontaneous request. Perhaps my most favorite maxim comes from this activity. Don't just do something, stand there. Listen. Listen, and then respond. Now, how do we respond? That brings us to the fourth part of our process. And that is, we have to tell a story. We respond in a way that has a structure. All stories have structure. We have to respond in a structured way. The key to successful spontaneous speaking, and by the way, planned speaking, is having a structure. I would like to introduce you to two of the most prevalent and popular and useful structures you can use to communicate a message in a spontaneous situation. But before we get there, we have to talk about the value of structure. It increases what is called processing fluency, the effectiveness through which we process information. We actually process structured information roughly 40% more effectively and efficiently than information that's not structured. I love looking out in this audience because you will remember, as I remember, phone numbers, when you had to remember them if you wanted to call somebody. Okay, young folks today don't need to remember phone numbers. They just need to look at a picture, push a button, and then the voice starts talking on the other end. 10-digit phone numbers, it's actually hard to remember 10-digit phone numbers. How did you do it? You chunked it into a structure, 3, 3, and 4. Structure helps us remember. The same is true when speaking spontaneously or in a planned situation. So let me introduce you to two useful structures. The first useful structure you have probably heard or used in some incarnation. It is the problem, solution, benefit structure. You start by talking about what the issue is, the problem. You then talk about a way of solving it, and then you talk about the benefits of following through on it. Very persuasive, very effective. Helps you as the speaker remember it, helps your audience know where you're going with it. When I was a tour guide on this campus, many years ago, what do you think the single most important thing they drilled into our head? It took a full quarter, by the way, to train to be a tour guide here. They used to line us up at one end of the quad and have us walk backwards straight, and if you failed, you had to start over. To this day, I can walk backwards in a straight line because of that. As part of that training, what do you think the most important thing they taught us was? Never lose your tour group. I'm not joking. Never lose your tour group. The same is true as a presenter. Never lose your audience. The way you keep your audience on track is by providing structure. None of you would go on a tour with me if I said, "Hi, my name's Matt, let's go." You want to know where you're going, why you're going there, how long it's going to take. You need to set expectations, and structure does that. Problem, solution, benefit is a wonderful structure to have in your back pocket. It's something that you can use quickly when you're in the moment. It can be reframed so it's not always a problem you're talking about. Maybe it's an opportunity. Maybe there's a market opportunity you want to go out and capture. It's not a problem that we're not doing it, but maybe we'd be better off if we did. So it becomes opportunity, solution, which are the steps to achieve it, and then the benefit. Another structure, which works equally well, is the what, so what, now what structure. You start by talking about what it is. Then you talk about why it's important, and then what the next steps are. This is a wonderful formula for answering questions, for introducing people. So if I'm in the moment somebody asks me to introduce somebody, I change the what to who, I say who they are, why they're important, and what we're going to do next. Maybe listen to them, maybe drink our wine, whatever. Right? What, so what, now what? The reality is this. When you are in a spontaneous speaking situation, you have to do two things simultaneously. You have to figure out what to say and how to say it. These structures help you by telling you how to say it. If you can become comfortable with these structures, you can be in a situation where you can respond very ably to spontaneous speaking situations. We're going to practice, because that's what we do. Here's the situation. Is everybody familiar with this child's toy? It's a slinky. Okay? You are going to sell this slinky to your partner using either problem, solution, benefit or opportunity, solution, benefit. What does this slinky provide you? Or you could use what, so what, now what? What is it? Why is it important? And the next steps might be to buy it. Okay? So by using that structure, see how already it helps you? It helps you focus. Get with your partner, and we're only going to have one partner sell to the other partner. Okay? So get with your partner. One of you will volunteer to sell to the other. Okay? Sell a slinky using problem, solution, benefit, or what, so what, now what. Please begin. Microphone. So when I debrief this, you can go ahead and pass them out. Does that make sense?
After Q&A?
No, after this activity.
Okay, and then after that we'll do Q&A.
Correct. $30 more seconds, please. Excellent. Let's all close the deal, seal the deal. I have never seen more people in one place doing this at the same time. I love it. I teach people to gesture and gesture big. It's great. I love it. So if you were the recipient of the sales pitch, thumbs up. Did they do a good job? Did they use the structure? Awesome. I'm recruiting you all for my next business as my salespeople. Please try to ignore this, but as we're speaking, the handout I told you about is coming around. On the back of that handout, you are going to see a list of structures, the two we talked about and several others, that can help you in spontaneous speaking situations. These structures help because they help you understand how you're going to say what you say. Structure sets you free, and I know that's kind of ironic, but it's true. If you have that structure, then you're free to think about what it is you're going to say. It reduces the cognitive load of figuring out what you're saying and how you're going to say it. All of this is on that handout. Okay? So what does this all mean? It means that we have within our ability the tools and the approaches to help us in spontaneous speaking situations. The very first thing we have to do is manage our anxiety, because you can't be an effective speaker if you don't have your anxiety under control. And we talked about how you can do that by greeting your anxiety, reframing as a conversation, and being in the present moment. Once you do that, you need to practice a series of 4 steps that will help you speak spontaneously. First, you get out of your own way. I would love it if all of you, on your way from here to the football game, point at things
Good
and
day
call
to
them
you.
the wrong name. It'll be fun. If most of us do it, then it won't be weird. If only 1 and 2 of us do it, it'll be weird. Right? Second, give gifts. By that I mean see your interactions as
help
ones
you
of
with that.
opportunity, not challenges. Third, take the time to listen. Listen. And then finally, use structures. And you have to practice these structures.
What is it?
I practice these structures on my kids. I have 2 kids. When they ask me questions, I usually answer them in what, so what, now what. They don't know it. But when they go over to their friends' houses and they see their friends ask their dads questions, they don't get what, so what, now what. So, you have to practice. The more you practice, the more comfortable you will become. Ultimately, you have the opportunity before you to become more compelling, more confident, more connected as a speaker if you leverage these techniques. If you're interested in learning more, this is where I do a little plug. Okay, I've written a book. Many of the MBA students who take the strategic communication classes here that I and others teach read it. It's called Speaking Up Without Freaking Out. More importantly, there's a website here that I curate called No Freaking Speaking. And it has lots of information that I've written and others have written about how to become more effective at speaking. So that's the end of my plug. What I'd really like to do is enter into a spontaneous speaking situation with you. And I would love to entertain any questions that you have. There are 2 people who are running around with microphones. So some of us who remember the Phil Donahue show, we're going to do a little bit of that. If you have a question, the microphone will come, and I'm happy to answer it. I think if you...
Is it on?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Can you talk about hostile situations?
Hostile situations, yes. So when you find yourself in a challenging situation, first, it should not become a surprise to you. It should not be a surprise. Before you ever speak, you should think about what is the environment going to be like. So it shouldn't surprise you that there might be some challenges in the room. When there are hostile situations that arise, you have to acknowledge it. So if somebody says, that's a ridiculous idea, why did you come up with that? To simply say, so the idea I came up with was, right? Acknowledge the emotion. I recommend not naming the emotion, right? So you sound really angry. The person says, I'm not angry, I'm frustrated. Now we're arguing over their mental state, right? Emotional state. So I say something like, I hear you have a lot of passion on this issue, or I hear there's great concern from you. So you acknowledge the emotion, because otherwise it sits in you. And then reframe or respond the way that makes sense. So if somebody raises their hand and says, your product is ridiculously priced, why do you charge so much? I might say, I hear great concern. And what you're really asking about is the value of our product. And I would give my value proposition, and then I would come back and say, and because of the value we provide, we believe it's priced fairly. So you answer the question about price, but you reframe it in a way that you feel more comfortable answering it. So the way to do this is to practice all the skills we just talked about. The only skill that I'm adding to this is the awareness in advance that you might be in that situation. First, I have to truly listen to what I'm hearing, right? It's very easy for me when I hear a challenging question to get all defensive and not hear what the person's asking. I see it as an opportunity to reframe and explain. Okay, so again, you have to practice, but that's how I think you address it. Are there other questions? I see a question back here. Yes, please.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
For a lot of the speaking I do, I have remote audiences, so audiences distributed all over the country with telecom. Any tips for those kinds of audiences?
So when you are speaking in a situation where not everybody is co-located, okay? In fact, right at this very moment, there are people watching this presentation remotely. What you need to do is be mindful of it. Second, try to include engagement techniques where the audience actually has to do something. So physical participation is what we did here through the games. You can ask your audience to imagine something. Imagine what it would be like if, when we try to achieve a goal. Rather than say, here's the goal we're trying to achieve, say, imagine what it would be like if. See what that does to you. It pulls you in. I can take polling questions. Most of the technology that you're referring to has some kind of polling feature. You can open up some kind of wiki or Google Doc or some collaborative tool where people can be doing things and you can be monitoring that while you're presenting. So I might take some breaks. I talk for 10, 15 minutes and say, okay, let's apply this and let's go into this Google Doc I've created and I see what people are doing. So it's about variety and it's about engagement. Those are the ways that you really connect to people who are remote from you. Okay? Other questions? Who you're pointing? Oh, I've got to look for where the mic is. Yes, please.
This may be similar to the first question,
Sure.
but I do a lot of expert witness testimony.
Mhm.
What's your recommendation for handling cross-examination, specifically? Specifically,
I feel like I'm
hostile
being cross-examined, right?
That's very hostile.
So, in any speaking situation that you go into that has some planned element to it, I recommend identifying certain themes that you think are important or believe need to come out. And then with each one of those themes, have some examples and concrete evidence that you can use to support it. You don't go in with memorized terms or ways of saying it. You just have ideas and themes, and then you put them together as necessary. So when I'm in a situation where people are interrogating me, I have certain themes that I want to get across and make sure that I can do that in a way that fits the needs in the moment. If it's hostile, again, the single best tool you have to buy yourself time and to help you answer a question efficiently is paraphrasing. The paraphrase is like the Swiss Army knife of communication. If you remember the show MacGyver, it's your MacGyver tool, right? So when a question comes in, the way you paraphrase it allows you the opportunity to reframe it, to think about your answer, and to pause and make sure you got it right. So when you're under those situations, if you have the opportunity to paraphrase, say, so what you're really asking about is X, Y, and Z, that gives you the opportunity to employ one of these techniques. Now, I've never been an expert witness because I'm not an expert on anything, but those tools, I believe, could be helpful. The microphone is back there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been so helpful and enjoyable this
good.
morning.
Thank you.
Would you please show the last screen so we can get down the name of the book that you've written and the information?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think they actually, you might even have an opportunity to, and it's on the sheet too. Everything I said is on the back of that sheet, but I'm happy to have this behind me while I talk. Other questions? Yes, please.
Yes, I work with groups that that represent many different cultural backgrounds.
Yes.
So are there any caveats, or is this a universal strategy?
So in terms of, from your perspective as the speaker, I believe this applies. But whenever you communicate, part of the listening aspect is also thinking about is, who is my audience and what are their expectations? So what are the cultural expectations of the audience that I'm presenting to? So there might be certain norms and rules that are expected. So when I travel and do talks, I have to take into account where I'm doing the presentation. So I help present in the Ignite program. If you have not heard about the Ignite program here at GSB, it's fantastic. And I just did a presentation standing in one of these awesome classrooms that have all these cameras, and I just taught 35 people in Santiago, Chile. Okay? And I needed to understand the cultural expectations of that area and what they expect and what they're willing to do when I ask them to participate. So it's a part of that listening step where you reflect on what are the expectations of the audience. I think we have time for 2 more questions, and then I'm going to hang around afterwards if anybody has individual questions, but some of these folks really want me to keep on schedule. Yes, please.
I wanted to ask a question. One of the things that you've done effectively in your talking, and I've seen other effective speakers do, is interject humor in their talk. What are the risks and rewards of trying to do that?
Well, first, thank you, and I appreciate all of you laughing. That's the sum total of all my jokes. You've heard them. I am not funny beyond those jokes. So humor is wonderfully connecting. It's wonderfully connecting. It's a great tool for connection. It is very, very risky. Cultural reasons get in the way. Sometimes what you think is funny isn't funny to other people. What research tells us is that if you're going to try to be funny, self-deprecating humor is your best bet, okay? Because it is the least risky. There is nothing worse than putting out a joke and having no response. It actually sets you back farther than if you would have gotten, where you would have gotten if the joke would have hit. So, basic fundamentals you need to think about with humor. 1, is it funny? How do I know? I ask other people first. 2nd, what happens if it doesn't work? Have a backup plan, right? And then 3rd, if you're worried about the answers to those first 2, don't do it.
Chum bucket.
Right. One last question, please. The microphone is right here. And then, like I said, I will hang around afterwards. Yes, please.
I am sort of on the opposite side of this, since I am a journalist and I frequently have to ask spontaneous questions of people who have been through media training.
Yes.
So any tips for chinks in the armor, way to ask a question without being antagonistic, but get a facsimile of a straight answer.
Well, so let me give you two answers. One is I have young boys, and the power of the why is great. Just ask why a couple times, and you can get through that first two layers of training. You know, why do you say that? How do you feel about that? The second bit is what I have found successful in getting people to, I do this to get people to answer in a more authentic way. What I'll do is I'll ask them to give advice. So what advice would you give somebody who's challenged with this? Or what advice would you give to somebody in this situation? And by asking for the advice, it changes the relationship they have to me as the question asker, and I often get much more rich, detailed information. So the power of the why, and then put them in a position of providing guidance, and that can really work. With that, I am going to thank you very much. I welcome you to ask questions later, and enjoy the rest of your reunion weekend. Thank you. Together as necessary. You can be monitoring that while you're... The paraphrase is like the Swiss Army knife of communication. Important or believe need to...
Testimony, what's your recommendation for handling cross-examination? Specifically.
I feel like I'm being cross-examined, right. So, in any speaking situation that you go into that has some planned element to it, I recommend identifying certain themes that you think are important or believe need to come out. And then with each one of those themes, have some examples and concrete evidence that you can use to support it. You don't go in with memorized terms or ways of saying it. You just have ideas and themes, and then you put them together as necessary. So when I'm in a situation where people are interrogating me, I have certain themes that I want to get across and make sure that I do that in a way that fits the needs in the moment. If it's hostile, again, the single best tool you have to buy yourself time and to help you answer a question efficiently is paraphrasing. The paraphrase is like the Swiss Army knife of communication. You remember the show MacGyver? It's your MacGyver tool, right? So when a question comes in, the way you paraphrase it allows you the opportunity to read.
Yo. Do it because you need to print because the back computer has the right amount on it when you do the deposit. If it don't match, something's wrong. Our computer hasn't fully updated and back, so there's no way we can actually do it the new system. Close it the normal way. Yeah, no, there's nothing you can do. Like I said before, what you want to do is you want to close the store the same way you do. Make sure that the money match. When you're going back and you do a deposit, it's gonna have that amount. That amount better be on. Nothing. So when Jen comes in the morning, or wait a minute, do I close? What? No, yeah, I close tomorrow. Jen works tomorrow morning. So when she come in and she check it, the numbers is right. She ain't calling me talking about something wrong. That's what you're doing. You ain't nothing changed yet. Do it the regular way. Period. No, nigga. You close the store you close the store the same way. You close it. You don't got the amount. You ain't gonna find out the amount till you get to the end of the damn deposit. So when you get through all that mess and you hit finalize, then you're good. Then what was the call for? You good. You solid. What? You didn't need me? Oh shit, my mic ain't muted. Fuck.
Reframe it, to think about your answer, and to pause and make sure you got it right. So when you're under those situations, if you have the opportunity to paraphrase, say, so what you're really asking about is X, Y, and Z, that gives you the opportunity to employ one of these techniques. Now, I've never been an expert witness because I'm not an expert on anything, but those tools, I believe, could be helpful. The microphone is back there. Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you so much. This has been so helpful and enjoyable this
good.
morning.
Thank you.
Would you please show the last screen so we can get down the name of the book that you've written and the information?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think they actually, you might even have an opportunity to, and it's on the sheet too. Everything I said is on the back of that sheet, but I'm happy to have this behind me while I talk. Other questions? Yes, please.
Yes, I work with groups that that represent many different cultural backgrounds.
Yes.
So, are there any caveats, or is this a universal strategy?
So, in terms of, from your perspective as the speaker, I believe this applies. But whenever you communicate, part of the listening aspect is also thinking about is who is my audience and what are their expectations? So what are the cultural expectations of the audience that I'm presenting to? So there might be certain norms and rules that are expected. So when I travel and do talks, I have to take into account where I'm doing the presentation. So I help present in the Ignite program, and if you have not heard about the Ignite program here at the GSB, it's fantastic. And I just did a presentation standing in one of these awesome classrooms that have all these cameras, and I just taught 35 people in Santiago, Chile. Right? And I needed to understand the cultural expectations of that area and what they expect and what they're willing to do when I ask them to participate. So it's a part of that listening step where you reflect on what are the expectations of the audience. I think we have time for 2 more questions, and then I'm going to hang around afterwards if anybody has individual questions, but some of these folks really want me to keep on schedule. Yes, please.
I wanted to ask a question. One of the things that you've done effectively in your talking, and I've seen other effective speakers do, is interject humor in their talk. What are the risks and rewards of trying to do that?
Well, first, thank you, and I appreciate all of you laughing. That's the sum total of all my jokes. You've heard them. I am not funny beyond those jokes. So humor is wonderfully connecting. It's wonderfully connecting. It's a great tool for connection. It is very, very risky. Cultural reasons get in the way. Sometimes what you think is funny isn't funny to other people. What research tells us is that if you're going to try to be funny, self-deprecating humor is your best bet, okay? Because it is the least risky. There is nothing worse than putting out a joke and having no response. It actually sets you back farther than if you would have gotten, where you would have gotten if the joke would have hit. So, basic fundamentals you need to think about with humor. 1, is it funny? How do I know? I ask other people first. 2nd, what happens if it doesn't work? Have a backup plan, right? And then 3rd, if you're worried about the answers to those first 2, don't do it, right? One last question, please. The microphone is right here. And then, like I said, I will hang around afterwards. Yes, please.
I'm sort of on the opposite side of this since I am a journalist and I frequently have to ask spontaneous questions of people who have been through media training.
Yes.
So any tips for chinks in the armor, way to ask a question without being antagonistic but get a facsimile of a straight answer?
Well, so let me give you 2 answers. One is I have young boys, and the power of the why is great. Just ask why a couple times, and you can get through that first 2 layers of training. You know, why do you say that? How do you feel about that? The second bit is what I have found successful in getting people to, I do this to get people to answer in a more authentic way. What I'll do is I'll ask them to give advice. So what advice would you give somebody who's challenged with this? Or what advice would you give to somebody in this situation? And by asking for the advice, it changes the relationship they have to me as the question asker. And I often get much more rich, detailed information. So the power of the why, and then put them in a position of providing guidance, and that can really work. With that, I am going to thank you very much.
I can help you with that.
Welcome you to ask questions later, and enjoy the rest of your reunion weekend. Thank you.
Good day to you.
I'm more connected to the energy of my future than I am to the energy of my past. I'm believing in my future more than I'm believing in my past.
And a new personality is connected to a new personal reality. So the next question is, does that change the body?
Once the energy's moved, you're going to feel
What is it? I can help you with that. Good day to you.
Work, work.
What is it? Good day to you. Good day to you.
I could help you with that.
What is it?
Work, work. I'm going to do my best work for you.
Good day to you.
I could help you with that. Work, work.
What is it? What is it? I can help you with that. I can help you with that. Good day to you. Good day to you. I can help you with that.
Woo, yeah. It's time to hit a save and get the hell up out of here. It's been a double stream day, 4 hours each. Love, peace, and chicken. Grease your boy Bruce. Catch you on the next one. Holla.